Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to begin this Tuesday morning with another day of protests against federal immigration raids in Los Angeles.
About 700 Marines are now being deployed. They'll support the hundreds of National Guard members who are already in L.A. trying to control these protests. California Governor Gavin Newsom calls the mobilization completely unwarranted. Protesters took to the streets again yesterday, clashing with police and the National Guard. Dozens of people have been arrested so far. These protests are in response to the Trump administration's stepped-up immigration raids, which began last Friday.
The state of California is now suing the administration over the activation of the state's National Guard. They're asking a court to declare the order unlawful. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is pleading with the federal government to stop the raids in the city. She says L.A. may be a test case for increased federal authority.
We didn't need the National Guard. Why on earth? What are they going to do? Do you know what the National Guard is doing now? They are guarding 2 buildings. So they need Marines on top of it? I don't understand that. That's why I feel like we are part of an experiment that we did not ask to be a part of.
We'll have analysis ahead from NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Let's begin this hour with NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal. Camila, good morning. It was another active night in the streets of downtown Los Angeles. So what's the latest on these protests, and where do we stand right now when it comes to mobilizing those Marines to try and support the National Guard?
Hey guys, good morning. So we haven't seen the Marines yet. We know they will be deployed according to the president, but we also know that Governor Gavin Newsom says that he doesn't want them here and is going to sue, just like he sued in terms of the National Guard. In the meantime, we may be going into day 5 of these protests. Day 4 right now, it is 4 a.m. in Los Angeles, and the streets are peaceful. It usually ends with police declaring an unlawful assembly. That means everyone has to clear the streets or else they will get arrested. So that's how you get a lot of peaceful nights here in Los Angeles, although there is still a large police presence and there is still a lot of cleanup to do, because we did see some looting overnight. When you walk through some of the streets in downtown LA, you'll find a lot of graffiti, and LAPD saying they're actually going to continue to look through surveillance video and continue these investigations, and say that they're likely going to have arrests in the coming days for people who are responsible for this looting. But it is important to point out that throughout the day, mostly peaceful protests, and yesterday, protests that were less violent than previous days. You still, though, have a group of people or just a few people who want to escalate things, who want to become more violent. And you have protesters on the ground who say they've even tried to stop some of the people that wanted to create that violence. But when that erupts, that's when you have officials coming in with the tear gas and the rubber bullets and trying to disperse the crowd. Some of the images that you see there, and then you, of course, see people running. It sort of looks like a stampede of people trying to get away from these officers, who then try to calm things and try to keep this area safe. There's, of course, that back and forth between federal leaders and local leaders who say they don't want the National Guard here and they don't want the Marines here, guys.
Danny, let's bring you in and talk about this lawsuit by the state of California against the Trump administration. First, I want to play a little bit from the state attorney general talking about this. We'll talk on the other side.
He's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. It's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much.
Danny, how strong is the state's argument in this lawsuit against the administration?
This particular law says that all orders to mobilize or federalize troops must be issued through a state's governor. So now we're going to find out, what does that language mean? Does that mean that Governor Newsom has to consent to federalizing National Guard troops? Or is it just a procedural requirement that an order just be routed through a governor? But what does that mean? Does it mean the president can order the governor to issue that order? You definitely get into some tricky constitutional issues there because of principles of federalism, that the states and federal governments are separate sovereigns. So it would be strange if the statute authorized the president to simply order the governor, or does the statute simply authorize the president to mobilize troops and that language about ordering through the governor's office is just a procedural issue.
The White House has said it's, quote, happy to have this fight with California. They've even threatened to arrest Governor Gavin Newsom. Is there any sort of precedent between a clash between the federal government and state and local officials on this level like this before that we've seen before?
Sure, I'm not being glib, but you could say the Civil War is a good example of state and federal conflict. But I say that not in a joke, but because that's where we get a lot of these statutes and a lot of these concerns about federalism, where we ask the question, at what point does the state sovereignty exceed that of the federal government, which was designed to be a limited government? And so, in a way, we are going to find out, and that's probably why the Trump administration is looking forward to this, because this seems to be their superpower. They find these areas of the law that have never really been litigated. I mean, this portion of the law has barely ever been used. So we may find out through the Supreme Court or some other court what exactly that language means, that all federalization of National Guard troops must come through the governor's office. Does that mean the governor is a puppet, or does it mean the governor has veto power? We don't yet know.
Camilla, walk us through what we can expect today on the streets of Los Angeles. Do we think a similar scene could play out like the last few days?
It's very possible. You know, we've been seeing this essentially evolve very organically over the last few days, obviously starting on Friday. And the thing here is that at the center of this issue is the raids, the ICE raids. And that's why you had Karen Bass pleading for all of these raids to stop. But the federal government saying that's not necessarily going to happen. And so you have a lot of people who are very upset about their loved ones being detained by immigration authorities in places like a Home Depot, or just in the place where they work, or just going to an immigration appointment. So if you continue to see these raids, you are going to likely see reaction from the people of Los Angeles. This is a largely minority area with a lot of Latinos and Hispanics and a lot of undocumented people. So this is really in the fabric of Los Angeles. The undocumented population could be your neighbor, your friend, your family member. And that's why you have the sort of reaction that you saw on Friday after those raids. And you could continue to see that if the raids continue to happen. It's, again, why you see the mayor of Los Angeles asking the federal government for all of this to stop. Will it? It's probably not going to stop.
Okay, Camila and Danny, thank you both for kicking us off this hour. We appreciate it.
Well, reaction to President Trump's crackdown on protests in Los Angeles is split along party lines. California Democrats are pushing back with, as we've been discussing, Governor Gavin Newsom arguing Trump is trying to, quote, manufacture a crisis.
But on Capitol Hill, Republicans are standing by the president's actions. Speaking to reporters yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson defended the president's decision to deploy Marines to California, implying that state and local authorities could not handle the situation on their own.
When he said that Marines might be dispatched to Los Angeles, I think that's an important message that's being sent. And hopefully it has the deterrent effect. But he's federalized the National Guard. I think that's an appropriate step. They are bringing an end to that chaos. I believe we have to maintain the rule of law. And if the state and local leaders are unable or unwilling to do so, it is the job of the federal government to step in.
NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor joins us with more on this. Sahil, good morning. Tell us, how are other members of the president's party responding on the Hill?
Hey, guys. Well, congressional Republicans are firmly behind President Trump here. They support the aggressive immigration crackdown that led to these protests. And now they say he's simply trying to restore law and order to the city of Los Angeles and to California. They accuse Democrats of allowing the city to spin out of control. Some Republicans on Capitol Hill are dialing up the rhetoric, openly attacking California, playing up that culture war that red state Republicans tend to like to do. Take a listen to what Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota said yesterday.
There's no question about places like California have thumbed their noses at the American people and decided they want to be sanctuary for criminals. And the president has a responsibility to the United States, and he has a federal nexus with regard to immigration policy, and he's exercising it. And I think that he's exercising exactly what he said he'd do and what the people elected him to do. So.
And promptly, you've got California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to some of his Republican critics. Take a look at this tweet responding to Speaker Mike Johnson. Argues that this isn't ultimately about crime. He notes that red states, including Louisiana, have higher crime rates than California. And if this was really the logic, then the administration would be deploying the Guard to states like Louisiana, which, of course, isn't happening, guys.
Yeah, so Sahil, we've heard from Governor Newsom. We've heard from L.A. Mayor Karen Bass. How about Democratic lawmakers on the Hill? How are they responding? Do they seem to have a cohesive message here beyond calling for peace?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that Democrats are saying. They say, for starters, they support the peaceful protest, but they don't support the violence, that they condemn that. They argue that Republicans are being the party of lawlessness and disorder here. They say Trump is trying to deliberately inflame the situation. Some of them also say he doesn't have credibility on the issue of law and order, given that he, of course, pardoned violent attackers on January 6th who violently attacked police officers. Take a look at this statement by former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, of course, representing California. Says, quote, the Trump administration's escalation and provocation inflames tensions and incites violence. She goes on to say all Americans must be able to exercise their constitutional right to lawfully and peacefully protest, and goes on to say we must shine a bright light on the unlawful tactics of the Trump administration so that freedom of speech prevails, unquote. That, I think, sums up the Democratic message, or at least the emerging one about as well as anything I've seen.
On Capitol Hill this morning, Sahil, Pete Hegseth is going to be under oath for the first time as Secretary of Defense. He's testifying about the department's budget that is yet to be submitted. What can we expect from his appearance?
A few things. This hearing kicks off in a little over 2 hours. It's a House Appropriations Subcommittee, so the nominal topic here is the budget that President Trump submitted to Congress, totaling about $1 trillion for the Pentagon between the appropriations process and that separate reconciliation bill that gives a huge infusion of cash. The Republican chair will be Ken Calvert. The Democratic ranking member will be Betty McCollum, because remember, it's a subcommittee. Hegseth is testifying alongside the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and his special assistant. Now, these hearings nominally, again, about the budget, but they tend to be an everything bagel sort of hearing about all the things that are in the news, all the criticisms and the grievances. We should expect things like Signalgate to come up. We should expect some of the chaos at the Pentagon and the hiring decisions to come up as well, and in addition to, of course, the deployment of Marines to Los Angeles, which is a huge topic right now, guys.
Sahil, thank you.
NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen joins us now with more analysis on all this. John, let's stick with Pete Hegseth there. So far, the White House has stood behind him through a few scandals, from the Signalgate group chat leaks, which Sahil just mentioned, to reports about a chaotic management style. Is there a sense these hearings this week could be make or break for Hegseth?
It's interesting, Joe. I think certainly there's the possibility that Pete Hegseth could break himself in these hearings. I'm not sure he could make himself. He's already been confirmed as Secretary of Defense. This is the first time these lawmakers are going to be able to question him about a variety of scandals and actions by the Trump administration. He basically has a pretty low bar to get through a congressional hearing. Most cabinet secretaries are able to do that. But I do think that there's some peril for him here.
John, to turn back to what's happening in California, we've heard from Democrats like New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. They've been pointing out the fact that the president did not personally deploy the National Guard during the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, and yet now he's ordered this major response to California, even though there was not that request from state leaders. What about Republicans on this particular point? How do they feel about the optics of this in comparison to the Capitol riot?
Yeah, Savannah, it's all partisan. Republicans don't want to talk about January 6th. Donald Trump certainly doesn't think January 6th was a bad thing. He obviously pardoned all of the people who were, or almost all of the people who were convicted of crimes related to January 6th. I think he looks at the opportunity to declare a rebellion or an insurrection, as he has been calling what's going on in Southern California. Looks at that as an opportunity to sort of muddy the water on January 6th. And Democrats look at this and say, why didn't you care about protesters injuring police at the Capitol when they were trying to keep Trump in office? And the answer is because they were trying to keep Trump in office. That's why Trump doesn't, was less upset about that than he seems to be about what's going on in Southern California. It's all sort of partisan politics, Savannah.
Imagine that. All right, John, so in the background of all of this, speaking of partisan politics, the clock is ticking on President Trump's tax and spending bill. Republicans in the House say they want to get it through the Senate onto the president's desk by July 4th. Does that look like a possibility at this point?
If you were Speaker Mike Johnson and you were hoping that the Senate basically just passes what the House passed, I guess it's a possibility at this point. It does look like it's moving a little more slowly through the Senate. They obviously haven't voted on it yet. There are still senators who are, who are upset about the level of debt and various other issues. So we will see whether they make that July 4th deadline. Of course, congressional leaders always put forward deadlines that are a little optimistic, because if they don't put deadlines in place, the House and Senate members will never get anything done.
All right, John, always good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Well, on Monday, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. removed all 17 members of a key CDC committee that makes recommendations about vaccines. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed, Kennedy said the scientific panel of independent experts was, quote, plagued with persistent conflicts of interest and had become little more than a rubber stamp for any vaccine. He announced plans to replace them with members who won't have ties to the vaccine industry, saying a clean sweep is needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. Members of the panel are required to disclose conflicts of interest and recuse themselves from voting on vaccines when conflicts do exist. NBC News spoke with an infectious disease expert and current member of the CDC who wished to remain anonymous. They called Kennedy's dismantling of the committee deeply insulting and described the move as, quote, a special form of gaslighting.
Here in New York, more emotional testimony in the federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs. His former girlfriend took the stand, saying that he repeatedly sexually and physically abused her. Her testimony coming as Combs' legal team again called for a mistrial. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Melas was inside the courtroom and has the latest.
Jane back on the stand for a third day of tearful testimony. The woman who once dated Combs testifying under a pseudonym to protect her identity. She described terrifying physical violence, testifying that Combs broke down doors and choked her, even lifting her up by her neck, but also saying she did not report the abuse to authorities. Jane crying today as well, as she testified to being forced to have sex with male escorts in drug-fueled encounters she referred to as hotel nights. Jane read several text exchanges between herself and Combs, in which she told him she did not want to participate. One reading, "I don't want to be used and locked in a room to perform and fulfill your fantasies." Jane telling prosecutor Maureen Comey that she felt forced because Combs was paying the rent for her LA home, and he threatened to stop if she refused to have sex with the escorts.
Jane's testimony marks really one of the most legally transformative moments in the trial, because she bridges the gap really between the narrative and the statute. Her account maps directly into the elements of sex trafficking.
In the courtroom, Combs' mother and one of his sons sat behind him. At one point, a rather subdued Combs turned around and appeared to mouth, "I love you, Mommy." Combs continues to deny the allegations against him. Jane's testimony later turning to Cassie Ventura's explosive civil lawsuit, in which she sued Combs for physical abuse and sex trafficking, accusing him of making her participate in similar drug-fueled sex parties, which Ventura called freak-offs. That suit was settled with Combs admitting no wrongdoing. Jane testifying that when she first read Ventura's suit in November 2023, she almost fainted. "In fact, I think I did," she said. "I couldn't sleep. It felt like a nightmare. I can't believe I'm reading my own story." The first back in court since Combs' legal team filed a motion for a mistrial. In a letter to the judge, his team writing that the prosecution, quote, has presented testimony that it knew or should have known was materially false, claiming Brianna Bongolin's testimony last week in which she said Combs dangled her over a 17-story balcony could not have happened because Combs was in New York at several public events near the time of the alleged incident.
Not every misstatement by a witness amounts to a mistrial. The defense must prove, if they really want that mistrial, that the government knew that the statement was false and that the government failed to act. And most importantly, that falsehood was so prejudicial that it deprives Diddy of a fair trial.
The judge stating that he would make a decision once prosecutors had a chance to file a response.
Our thanks to Chloe Melas for that report. Jane is expected to be on the stand through the end of the week and could be the last key witness for the government before the defense gets to make its case.
A man has been charged in a shooting on the crowded Las Vegas Strip that left 2 people dead, and we do want to warn you the video you're about to see is disturbing. Police say 41-year-old Manuel Ruiz turned himself in Monday. He is accused of opening fire outside the Bellagio Hotel Sunday night, killing 2 people and causing a crowd to stampede to safety in what authorities called an isolated incident. Investigators believe the shooting may have stemmed from a dispute on social media. The victims' identities have not yet been released. Let's get you weather now. A cold front is bringing more rain to the northeast this morning.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman has a look at that and more in your Morning News Now forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're watching a long stretching cold front from New England all the way down to the southeast, parts of the Gulf Coast states, bringing some wet weather this morning, so slowing us down a bit. And then we could see some embedded thunderstorms along this front, too, later on today. Notice in Texas, you see a cluster of storms moving through. That will be the story throughout this Tuesday. More rain for Texas, and that's going to bring the threat for flash flooding because we've been so wet there over the past few days and really weeks. So as we zoom in a little closer, we see some areas that have some brighter colors. That's indicating where that heavier rain is falling. And we will see the chance for flash flooding in Texas today and also on Wednesday. Now, we will see the chance for some stronger thunderstorms in New Mexico and Texas. That's where you see the yellow there. So places like Alpine, Del Rio could see some stronger storms that are producing large hail, 2 inches or greater. This would be mainly later on this afternoon and evening once that daytime heating really gets going. Could see some winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour and an isolated tornado is possible. And then along the East Coast, notice that green shading. That is a marginal risk for some stronger thunderstorms, or we could see some gusty winds with any of those storms and some really heavy downpours. So there's that cold front as it moves off to the east, bringing that morning rain to parts of the northeast, and then a broken line of storms from Maine to North Carolina. Now, notice the tail end of this cold front kind of gets hung up in portions of the south into the Gulf Coast states, the southeast. That's going to bring more showers and storms kind of moving over the same area. So we will see the chance for flash flooding once again tomorrow, where we could see up to 5 inches of rain in some spots. Speaking of flash flooding, this is a flood risk, also a flash flooding risk for Wednesday. So in terms of the flash flooding risk, where you see the blue, that is a slight risk. That's a higher risk for some flash flooding, including San Angelo, Alpine, Del Rio, and also San Antonio. Then as we near Wednesday, that's going to move towards the east just a little bit. But guys, we could see up to 5 inches of rain in some spots. So really, really saturated in these areas. Back to you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.